What's up guys, it's me Jeremy, and finally I have prepared my runes and masteries to be able to show you guys for supports in Season 4. So I'm going to go through all the support runes and masteries that I personally use and enjoy for Season 4. So let's get started with the masteries. Now keep in mind as I go through these pages that the way I play support is actually really different to the way most pros would. So most of my pages have a very heavy focus on defense because I feel that taking heavy points into defense as a support in solo queue makes carrying as well as winning your lane a lot easier, whereas normally in games like LCS or at least Challenger, much higher level games than the games I play, taking utility is probably a little bit better, whereas defense can be easily punished due to the main lack of gold generation as a main weakness, and so it's kind of reliant on me getting kills in the laning phase. Otherwise I get pretty much no gold throughout the game and I'm really weak. But overall my runes and masteries create this general focus of me winning laning phase and having this overall power for carrying the game as a support. And so let's go through the pages now. So the first page here we have coin plus boots versus AD. So this is a very interesting page where I take and expect to build a coin into talisman plus CDR boots versus an AD champion. So it's 421-5 and the 21 defense for the AD matchup. So this is when I want to go my talisman into CDR boots to get that 40% CDR, this is the page I would take versus an AD focused team. And one thing you'll notice is that reinforced armor is actually not taken, and it's actually not that important because as a support you're not really going to be hit by the AD carry in team fights anyways if you position properly. So reinforced armor isn't actually that big of a deal for you to take. While oppression I do take, I'm not so sure about oppression anymore because of the Randuin's nerfs, because earlier you could go oppression, build Randuin's, and have a permanent reduced 3% damage, but since the Randuin's nerf, I'm not really sure. So I'm still actually kind of testing oppression a little bit. I might change it to perseverance or something like that. But overall, this is a page focused on winning the laning phase while transitioning into a 40% CDR build for the teamfight phase. And if we have our second page, it's pretty much the same thing except a focus on AP. Pretty much the only difference is these two guys right here. A very strong majority of AP effects are AoEs. So evasive is a pretty solid mastery to take if you're playing versus an AP focused team. And moving on, so this is my main page on champions like Leona. So this is my mega tank, and I'm not trying to build CDR or anything like that. This is a page where I would transition into probably this patch. I would build Sunfire Cape, Banshee's Veil, stuff like that, full tank items. And I do take reinforced armor on this page because it's a mega tank page. So you only want to take this kind of page on champions that scale well with enchanted armor. What I mean is that enchanted armor actually scales with champions abilities. So like Thresh's passive, Leona's W, Braum's W, enchanted armor will scale with those abilities. And so on those kind of champions, it's really good to take enchanted armor. And so this is pretty much the AP version of this mega tank page. So this is what I would take versus say an AP lane if I'm playing versus like Sona or Karma in lane, where I need the early magic resistance to help me out to survive the early laning phase, to help me out a lot. I would take this page instead of this one. And then now we have a passive lane. So this is a lane if I'm just playing a bad matchup and I don't need to transition to a tanky late game, this is the page I would take. So this is my utility page. You could also do a 4-5-21 page if you were looking to get that 10% CDR, which leads me to my next page, of course, 4-5-21, like I was just saying. So this is if you want that 20%, or if you want 10% CDR. So you can take this page, build a talisman, get a blue pot, and that will give you 40% CDR. Or you could perhaps build like a locket or anything that gives you 10% CDR, even like Ardent Sensor or something, and then as well have the talisman that gives you that 20% without getting the blue pot. And so this kind of mastery page is really good on someone like Janna, who scales really well with CDR and will allow you to kite a lot better. So the extra CDR will help you out a ton in team fights. And so this is the kind of page I would take on someone that's also a passive laner. So I should add in, this is a very passive lane for this page, or at least it's like a safe lane or where a lane you're expecting to play safe, because this lane is difficult to play aggressive with because you're not tanky. Like all these tanky pages, the reason why these pages have such a focus on being tanky is because it's all about playing aggressive in lane. And when you play aggressive in lane as a support, a lot of times you're going to be focused down. And so when you get focused down, you have to be able to survive the damage from your opponents, because you have to kill them before they kill you. And this tanky page makes it absolutely incredibly easier to do that. Because of that, I have tanky setups for my utility support. So like, you know, just champions that don't really do well in lane. Like they don't do a lot of damage. They don't really have a very solid laning phase. This is kind of the page you would want to take. So it's a page with tankiness as well as a focus on utility as well, because you have that extra gold generation because you're not expecting to win lane. But this page would still allow you to make plays. So pretty much always I would prefer this page over these two. Like almost always I would prefer this page as well as my last page, which is the magic resistance version of the page with evasive, of course. And so 95% of the time, I would prefer these two pages over these two pages, because getting CDR in your masteries isn't exactly necessary. Like, as important as CDR is and as valuable as CDR is on a stat for supports, CDR is in pretty much almost every single item for supports. Like, you can just go talisman, boots, and that's 35%. Or you could go locket or the new ardent sensor or things like that. Like there's so many items that supports have to gain that CDR, and you don't have to max out as 40%, and it's not always worth the tankiness trade-off to get that extra CDR, because staying alive is obviously way better than, you know, using your abilities a little bit sooner. And so that's really it for my mastery pages. It's only 8 pages. That's not that much, especially if you compare it to my rune pages right now. I use 11 rune pages, and I'm actually going to start with this one here, which is my second rune page, because I believe that this rune page is, if I had to choose one out of my 11 pages, this one would be it. This would be the rune page I use to play support if I could only play support with one rune page. This page gives you useful stats, and it's something that you could expect for anything. And armor quints, health seals, armor reds, and magic resistance blues. And so this page gives you a very solid tanky setup with that extra 72 health, 21 armor, and 12 magic resistance. So on a lot of champions, if you take this with a tanky mastery page, you could end up with about somewhere around 700 to 800 health, as well as 50 armor and 40 magic resistance at level 1, which is very strong. And it transitions well too, because by the time it's not really useful anymore, you'll have enough gold to get a tank item. And in addition, before I move on, I want to talk about quints a little bit. So it's my personal belief that what you do with your quints are kind of your personal preference. Like when it comes to quints, like so many quints have like so different degrees of stats that they give you, that when it comes to quints are all about your personal play style. So you could take gold quints if you're a passive player, and I highly recommend that if you are a passive player. I, however, am not a passive player, so I take armor quints instead, as well as you could also take move quints if you like to roam a lot or something like that. Like these are just the quints I have, not all these. I've even seen supports take AP quints if they want that extra damage, but again, that is a little bit easier to punish that damage focus, so I personally would never do that. But gold quints and move quints are definitely solid possibilities, as well as other tanky options depending on the matchup. But in actuality, through all 11 pages, I use armor quints, because armor quints right now in combo with health seals are mathematically the most tanky setup, and I pretty much always want a tanky setup. Since I pretty much always want to play aggressive no matter what I'm playing, I have a tanky setup throughout all of these rune pages pretty much, and I take armor quints in every page. And so let's go back to this first page. So this is a mega tank versus AD lane. We have health yellows, armor reds, armor quints, and scaling magic resistance blues. And so these scaling magic resistance blues outscale flat MR blues at around level 8 or 9 or so. And so you take this lane, or you take this page versus a lane where magic resistance is not something you need in the lane. So this is the second page, of course, is for an AP lane where you're playing versus magic resistance or magic damage supports. And the thing is that pretty much it's reasonable to say that a majority of supports do magic damage. So I take this page probably a lot more than I take this page. But this is the mega tank page. Anyways, moving on, we have our mana regen page. So this page is similar to these mana regen pages. There's 2 mana regen pages, I think. Yeah, 2 mana regen pages. It's very similar to the last 2 where it's versus an AD lane versus an AP lane for the difference in blues. So you have scaling, MR versus an AD lane. But we also have these, we have 5 mana regen seals. So this is the kind of page I would want to take on someone who is very mana dependent. So Lulu is my main use of this page because Lulu runs out of mana really, really fast. And you want to be able to keep up your pressure in teamfights. So mana regen helps you do that a lot. And the extra health kind of is missed a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's only like 40 health. So that's like what, 1 or 2 auto attacks maybe. So it's not huge. Whereas the mana regen makes a big difference because you can actually use this really efficiently throughout your fights. And of course, we have armor reds and armor quints. And this page is really interesting. So this ranged poke option is the only offensive option that I have throughout all of my runes and masteries, and it's health yellow, scaling MR blues, and then for the other option versus AP lane we have the flat MR blues, and then we have armor quints and AD reds with, of course, the troll crit chance rune in there, because if you take AD reds you should always take the crit chance rune, or it's my belief that you should. A lot of people argue back and forth on that. Yes, technically the stats do say that it's better to take the extra AD, but in reality, the crit chance will help you win lane more because getting like 1 crit in lane on an opponent or like 2 crits can just decide the lane sometimes. Whereas an extra 1 AD is not going to decide your lane. Yeah, at the cost of 8 armor, you get about 8 AD. And so this is a page I take on champions who are ranged versus good matchups. So this is the kind of page that helps you snowball a good matchup. And you only want to take it if the matchup of your AD carry is also good. So if I'm playing someone like Caitlyn Lulu or Caitlyn Thresh, a ranged support with a lane dominant AD carry versus an AD carry who's weak in lane, also versus a support that I am strong against. So say I'm playing Thresh with a Caitlyn against someone like Vayne Sona. This is a page I would probably take. Or since it's Sona, I would take the versus the AP lane page, because this will give you so much more damage and will allow you to capitalize and punish the lane weakness of your opponent so much more easily. But you only want to take it if your lane presence and lane power is so overwhelmingly in favor of your 2 champions that is not going to be that missing that armor is not going to be punished. And then we have our passive lane. This page is actually supposed to have gold quints. Let's fix that real quick. This is a page that I pretty much never take because I don't like to play passive lanes, but I just kind of put this here to show you guys. So you can take gold quints. The gold generation of gold quints is not really that good. It's about like, or at 21 minutes and 30 seconds into the game, it'll be 20 minutes. And so 20 minutes times 18 gold per minute. So at 21 minutes and 30 seconds into the game, you'll have 360 gold. And for every 20 minutes, you get 360 gold. So it's not exactly like the most overwhelmingly amount of gold that you get. Like, it's just okay. Like, 360 gold is decent. I mean, it's okay. It used to be a lot better because in like season 2, you would use that 360 gold to buy wards, which was really significant because that's like, it's not 360 gold. That's like, what? It's 5 wards. So 5 wards is really significant when you think about it, but you don't need to buy wards like that anymore. So gold quints are pretty much something I would really, honestly, I would never take gold quints on support because I would much rather have something that helps me win the lane. And if you get just 1 kill because of your quints that you took instead of the gold pretend, it's completely worth it. If you get 2, it's incredibly worth it. It is so much value if you take quints other than gold quints and you get a kill because of it. And sometimes that happens. Like when you take armor quints, I take armor quints, I get 13 armor from my armor quints. And some fights I live with like 20 HP. You know what? Armor quints saved my life that fight. If I'd taken gold quints, I definitely would have died. And that happens probably like every game, maybe every other game at least. And so it's significant in my opinion. So although this page is focused on a passive lane, it's not something I would really take. Okay, and then I have this page. This page is really interesting, and I really like it. Whenever I get to take this page, I love it. It's so much fun because I get so much armor. So this is a page you take when your opponent has no AP damage. So it's armor blues, health yellows, armor reds, armor quints, and that gets you to 27 armor. So with this page, on most champions with a tanky mastery page, I would have around 60 to 65 armor at level 1, which pretty much makes you like unstoppable because of the health too. So you have the bonus health as well as the extra armor. So this is a page that will make you so tanky versus opponents, and especially since a lot of champions mid lane are AD based right now, this is a page I end up taking like every now and again when my opponent has no AP, which tends to happen quite a bit in solo queue because a lot of people play AD champions. And this is the same page but with the mana regen setup as mentioned earlier. So we got our 5 mana seals to help me. So if I'm playing like Lulu or something like that, I would take this page instead. And then this is actually the ranged poke, so the good matchup, because this is if you go back to our ranged poke pages earlier. So this is pretty much the ranged poke page with armor blues, health yellows, and AD reds, and armor quints. And then lastly we have this page, which is actually, I don't know, I kind of had an extra page and I was like, what do I do with this extra page? And then I realized that I should probably have a page for when I'm playing, since I have pages for playing against an all AD team, why don't I have pages for playing against a heavy AP team? So this is a page I would take versus a team that's like triple or perhaps quadra or even 5 AP players. Most likely it would just be 4 AP players or 3, but the thing is that this page is not very good for your lane because you have MR reds, MR blues, armor quints, and health yellows. So since we don't have armor reds, that's actually going to make your laning a little bit weaker unless you're playing versus an AP lane. So this is the kind of thing you would take versus AD carries that do AP damage, so like Ezreal, Corki. And I think that just about covers it. You know, I'm trying to think of like what other options people take. It's mostly the quints. Like the blues on support, like people really only just take flat MR or scaling MR depending on the situation. You could technically take armor yellows, but the thing is that what you used to do, right, was you would take, before the armor seals nerf, you would take armor seals and health quints. And now it is way more efficient to take armor quints and health seals because of the health seals buff. And so that's a page that gives you health and armor. Oh wow. Anyways, I think that's just about it for my runes and masteries. Those are my support runes and masteries for season 4. I hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.